I was at the airport waiting for my flight, which was boarding in 2 hours. But before leaving, I had some unfinished business to take care of. I checked the arrivals screen and saw that the flight from Maui had just landed. I kept my eyes glued to the arrival gates. And sure enough, there they came. My ex-fiancé, red as a boiled lobster, dragging a suitcase and looking absolutely miserable. Right behind him was his ex-wife, sporting a facial expression that looked like she'd spent the last 7 days chewing on broken glass. I stood up from my table, walked straight to the gate, and planted myself right in front of them. His eyes widened in pure shock. She went pale. And before he could even stutter out some pathetic excuse, I flashed a bright smile and asked, "Hey, how was the big family vacation? Did you guys forget your daughter back in Hawaii?" But hold on, let me rewind a bit and tell you how we ended up in this situation. This is an original story from the channel True Colors Revealed. There are other channels out there stealing my stories and posting them as their own, which really hurts my work. If you notice you're not on the original channel, please click off and find the real one. Now, grab a seat, because here comes the drama. My name is Harper. I'm 36 years old and work as a regional HR manager. I've always been a workaholic. Unfortunately, I wasn't born a trust fund baby, and I don't have rich parents to foot my bills. Everything I have, I built from the ground up, working the daily grind from Monday to Friday, putting in overtime, and dealing with clueless corporate executives. With a lot of sacrifice, I managed to buy my own 2-bedroom condo in downtown Chicago. It has gorgeous hardwood floors and a little balcony overlooking the skyline. It's my pride and joy. I had financial stability and a lot of peace, but I suffer from one fatal flaw. I have a notoriously broken toxic guy radar. Seriously, if it was raining good men, I'd pop open my umbrella, cross the street, and somehow manage to lock eyes with the absolute worst walking red flag at a dive bar. And that's exactly how I met Callum. We crossed paths at a happy hour on a Friday. I was at a downtown tavern with some HR colleagues, and Callum was there with his corporate team at the table next to ours. We ended up merging tables. Everyone started chatting, and oh, the irony of fate. There must have been 6 guys at that giant table, highly successful engineers, senior directors, guys who had their lives entirely figured out. But since my toxic radar has a mind of its own, out of all the options, I struck up a conversation with the most broke guy of the bunch. Callum was a marketing analyst. He was the classic LinkedIn bro. You know the type. Patagonia fleece vest over a tight button-down, hair slicked back with expensive pomade, and an oversized silver watch on his wrist. He talked about synergy, networking, and Q3 budgets nonstop. He constantly projected the image of a wildly successful executive. Except, behind the expensive shirts, his reality was a disaster. Callum was 35 and divorced. He had a 5-year-old daughter named Alara. After separating from his ex-wife Sloane, he rented a microscopic studio apartment. With his modest analyst salary, he was barely scraping by to pay his own exorbitant rent, his car lease, child support, and practically funding his ex-wife's lifestyle. Meaning, at the end of the month, the successful executive didn't have a single dime to his name. Of course, I didn't pay much attention to those red flags at first, because if I had, there'd be no story to tell. Callum was a great conversationalist. He was affectionate, and we quickly started dating. Our first year was the typical honeymoon phase. Callum had custody of Alara every other weekend. He'd pick her up on a Friday night and drop her off Sunday evening. Since his studio was the size of a shoebox, he started bringing her to my condo for those weekends. Playing the role of the perfect, accommodating girlfriend, I went as far as emptying my guest room to create a beautifully decorated, pastel-colored bedroom just for Alara. I bought her toys, set up a princess canopy, the whole 9 yards. But Alara couldn't stand me. I tried everything, making her favorite snacks, buying her little gifts, taking her to the park, but nothing worked. She'd glare at me, cry when I got too close, and constantly repeat, "Mommy says you're ugly, and you stole Daddy." It was blatantly obvious that Sloane was brainwashing the kid against me, but I brushed it off. Callum, of course, never corrected his daughter. He'd just rub his face and sigh heavily. On the weekends, Alara was with us. He was a ball of anxiety, desperate to please her. He complained incessantly about Sloane, claiming she was unhinged, spoiled the girl rotten, and used Alara as a pawn. Sloane constantly emotionally blackmails her. "Babe," he'd tell me, sprawled on my sofa after dropping Alara off. "She fills the kid's head with garbage, telling her we live in luxury while they struggle. Luxury? What luxury? I'd think. We were meal prepping Tupperware lunches for work and hunting for generic brand laundry detergent on sale. But I stood by him. After all, who hasn't dealt with a crazy ex trying to ruin their peace of mind? As time passed, his complaints grew. His phone would buzz constantly, with Venmo requests from Sloan. Callum. Putting Alara in gymnastics. Send $200. Callum. The pediatric dentist found a cavity. Zell me $400. Callum. Alara needs a new winter coat. Send $300. Because apparently, a winter coat for a 6-year-old costs designer aprices. Callum started walking around looking depressed. He said he was drowning in debt and couldn't keep up with Sloane's financial extortion just to keep the peace to see his daughter. He threw a pity party every single week. Eventually, I felt genuinely sorry for him. And that's when my pragmatic, problem-solving brain stepped right into the trap. I sat next to him and asked, "Babe, would it help if you broke your lease and moved in here with me? We can do a trial run of living together, and you won't have to pay rent. That should free up a lot of cash for your bills." His eyes literally sparkled. Within a week, his clothes were in my closet. Our trial run turned into an official engagement. We split the utilities and groceries, but since he was no longer paying Chicago rent, his paycheck suddenly went a lot further. He had hundreds of extra dollars sitting comfortably in his bank account every month. I thought he was going to save that money for our future, but I forgot to run that by his ex-wife. Sloan worked as a receptionist at a small dental clinic, making minimum wage. She was the exact archetype of an ex who believes she is owed the universe simply because she gave birth. In her mind, being a mother was a CEO-level position that gave her the right to demand whatever she wanted. Otherwise, Alara would miraculously get sick on visitation days. And Sloan had an impeccable sixth sense for ruining her ex's relationships. Barely a month after Callum moved into my place, the peace vanished. One day, Callum came home, tossed his keys on the counter, gave me a quick peck, and cracked open an IPA. "Babe, Sloan called me today," he mentioned casually, leaning against the kitchen island. "Oh? Asking for Venmo again?" I asked. Already exhausted by the topic. Actually, no. It was about Alara's child psychologist. She called Sloan in and said Alara has severe anxiety because she misses seeing her parents together. The therapist recommended we start spending Sundays together as a family unit, me, Alara, and Sloan, doing normal family activities to give her emotional security. I stopped chopping vegetables for dinner and stared at him. "Spending Sundays at your ex-wife's house?" My internal alarms were blaring. "Sunday is our only day off. And you're going to spend the entire day on your ex's couch?" "Yeah, at her place. Or maybe taking Alara to a museum." He shrugged, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "It's just for a little while, Harper. Just until Alara understands we'll always be there for her. It's doctor's orders." "Callum, that makes zero sense. You two are divorced. Playing pretend happy family is just going to confuse the kid more." "And where do I fit into this?" He put his beer down, walked over, and grabbed my shoulders, giving me this patronizing look like I was a toddler who didn't understand adult concepts. "Harper, you don't need to be jealous. Sloan is just the mother of my child. I have zero interest in spending my day off looking at her face. I'd rather be here cuddling with you, but I'm doing this for Alara. You get that, right? It's for my daughter's mental health. We have to make sacrifices for our kids. Checkmate." How on earth was I supposed to argue against a 6-year-old's mental health without sounding like the wicked stepmother? I took a deep breath, swallowed my disgust, and agreed. And just like that, his family Sundays became a religious weekly event. The whole therapist-recommended bonding sounded cute in theory, but in practice, it was a nightmare. Sunday, 8 a.m. Callum would step out of the shower smelling like expensive Tom Ford cologne, dressed in a crisp, perfectly ironed polo shirt. "I'm heading out, babe," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Where are you going so early?" "Oh," Sloan texted. Alara woke up crying for Daddy's famous pancakes. "So I'm going over early to cook breakfast for them." The therapist said we need to build positive home memories. He'd leave, and I'd be stuck in my own home, scrubbing the bathrooms in worn-out sweatpants, while my fiancé went to play chef for his ex-wife. He'd only return past 9 p.m., looking exhausted but fulfilled. Take a shower, go to sleep, And on Monday, life went back to normal. I endured this circus for weeks. I kept my mouth shut, trying to normalize the fact that I was sharing my weekends with my fiancé's ex. This is the price of dating a man with kids, I'd repeat to myself while vacuuming. He's a good dad. I can't stand in the way of that. But my limit for this absolute insanity was reached one Sunday night when he walked through the door after another long day with the family. He threw his keys down, slumped onto the sofa, and dropped a bomb. You know, babe, Sloan makes terrible money at that clinic. She complained about finances all day. Do you think you could fast-track her resume at your corporate office for a higher-paying job? I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. I stopped what I was doing, looked him dead in the eyes, and spoke very slowly. Callum, that is absolutely out of the question. I am not getting your ex-wife a job at my company. His casual demeanor vanished, replaced by a victim complex. But why not, Harper? You're in HR. You hire people all the time. Just put her in the approved pile for something that pays well. That is not how corporate hiring works, Callum, I said, raising my voice. And even if it was, I am not mixing my professional career with my personal life, especially not with your ex-wife who actively hates me. You want me running into her in the break room while I get my morning coffee? No, absolutely not. Tell Sloan to apply on Indeed like everyone else. He let out a sarcastic chuckle, shook his head, and played the dirtiest card in his deck to invalidate me. Seriously, Harper? You're going to refuse to help because of some petty jealousy over Sloan? I'm just trying to fix a financial issue for my daughter that directly impacts us, and you're acting like an insecure teenage girlfriend. I breathed in deeply to stop myself from wringing his neck. It's not jealousy, Callum. It's called a boundary. And my boundary stops at my office doors. The answer is no. He scoffed, crossed his arms, and turned his attention to the TV. Fine, Harper. He spat, his voice dripping with resentment. But don't complain later when we can't save up enough money for our own wedding. He sulked on the couch for the rest of the night, but I didn't cave. A few weeks after that ridiculous guilt trip over the resume, my company's executive board called me into a meeting. They offered me an incredible promotion, regional director. It was a massive leap for my career, a six-figure salary bump, and amazing benefits. The only catch? The position was to oversee the Pacific Northwest Division. I'd have to relocate to Seattle in a few weeks. I came home euphoric. I popped open a bottle of wine to celebrate and told Callum the news. I thought he'd be thrilled. Our standard of living was about to skyrocket, and his marketing firm had a Seattle branch, so he could easily request a transfer. His reaction was the exact opposite of what I expected. His smile vanished. He put his wine glass down and looked at me like I'd just stabbed him. What do you mean, move to Seattle, Harper? Are you serious? Callum, it's a regional director position. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. We'll be living incredibly well. And my job? And Alara? He interrupted, his voice rising. Where does my daughter fit into this opportunity of a lifetime? I froze. Alara can come visit us during her summer breaks, Callum. Visit during the breaks? Callum actually started crying. He threw a full-blown emotional tantrum in the middle of my living room. You want me to watch my daughter grow up through FaceTime? You're asking me to be a deadbeat dad? Callum, that's not what I mean. But this is our future. No, Harper, this is your future. You're already a manager here. Why do you need this promotion? Isn't your salary good enough? You're willing to stomp on my daughter's heart just to get a fancy new title on your door. I couldn't catch my breath. He was twisting everything. Alara already has anxiety. Harper, he yelled, pacing the room and wiping away tears. Imagine when she finds out her father moved across the country to be with his new wife. He made me feel like a greedy monster, a corporate sociopath trying to rip a loving father away from a defenseless child. And what did this foolish, in-love woman do? The very next morning, with a shattered heart, I walked into the VP's office and turned down the promotion, citing family reasons. At the time, I tried to convince myself I had made the right choice. Relationships require sacrifice, right? Seeing the sheer relief on Callum's face, getting his grateful hugs, and feeling the peace return to our condo made me think it was worth it. I believed our little family unit was more important than a job title. That peace didn't even last a week. A few days after I sacrificed my career for him, Callum came home and dropped another grenade in my lap. We were eating dinner when he set his fork down, making that specific face of someone about to deliver tough but necessary news. Babe, I was talking to Sloane, and Alara has been begging us for something. She said her biggest dream is to go on a trip with Mommy and Daddy, so I decided to book a week in Maui for the three of us. I must have chewed my food 20 times. I couldn't swallow. A week in Hawaii? Callum, how on earth are you paying for that? He puffed out his chest. Well, babe, since I haven't been paying rent or utilities lately, I managed to save up a solid chunk of cash over the last few months. And Alara asked with those big puppy dog eyes. You understand, right? Oh, I understood. I understood perfectly. The man who wouldn't even take me out to a nice steakhouse for our anniversary was funding a tropical Hawaiian vacation for his kid and his ex-wife. The most luxury I ever got from his paycheck was him begrudgingly paying half the internet bill. But to take his ex-wife to drink out of coconuts in Maui, the money magically appeared. I took a deep breath, swallowing the lump in my throat, trying to find a shred of logic. And what about me, Callum? I asked, crossing my arms. Since I'm the one essentially funding this by letting you live here rent-free, shouldn't I be coming on this trip too? His proud smile vanished instantly. He took a step back, as if I'd suggested something offensive, holding his hands up defensively. Babe, no. That's a bad idea. Why? Harper, look at it from my daughter's perspective. Alara explicitly told the therapist she wanted to go with Daddy and Mommy, just the three of us. Imagine how she'd feel if Daddy brought the stepmom along on her family trip. It would ruin the vacation for her. Callum, this is absurd. How do you think I feel, knowing my fiancé is going to be parading around a luxury beach resort in swim trunks with his ex-wife for 7 days? Do you think I'm an idiot? That's when his demeanor flipped. The superdad mask fell off, and the professional gaslighter emerged. He pointed a finger at me, projecting the blame with chilling coldness. You know what, Harper? I thought you were different, but you're incredibly possessive. If you can't trust me to take a simple family vacation for the sake of my daughter's happiness, then maybe we shouldn't be together. I need a mature woman who trusts me, not someone who gets paranoid just because my ex breathes the same air. Are you really going to throw our future in the trash over your petty jealousy? I was boiling inside. I was literally sponsoring this romantic reboot. But his disgusting manipulative tactic worked. He cornered me. If I forbade the trip, I wouldn't just be the evil stepmother. I'd be the crazy, insecure girlfriend who destroyed the relationship. I swallowed my anger and bitterly agreed. The vibe in the condo was toxic after that, but life went on. Until the Sunday following the Hawaii announcement. He repeated his ritual. Long shower, designer cologne, crisp button down. Going to see my daughter, babe. Back tonight. He left, and I sat there staring at the walls of my condo. But that day, I didn't have the patience to scrub toilets or watch Netflix in sweatpants. My blood was still boiling over the Maui trip. I needed to see people, spend some money, blow off steam. I got dressed and drove out to a huge indoor mall in the suburbs. The food court was packed. I bought a coffee and sat at a table near the massive arcade center, one of those Dave & Buster's style places with skee ball and neon lights. That's when I saw her. Standing by the prize counter, a little girl with a pink bow in her hair was laughing and jumping. It was Alara. My heart skipped a beat. Callum and Sloane must be nearby. I looked left, right, scanned the tables. Where was the happy nuclear family? No Callum. No Sloane. Standing right behind Alara was an older woman with short gray hair. I had absolutely no idea who she was, but my confusion lasted exactly 5 seconds. Alara grabbed the woman's leg and yelled, "Grandma, buy me more tokens for the racing game." It was Sloane's mother, Callum's ex-mother-in-law. Alara hadn't noticed me, and I stood frozen behind a pillar, just watching. I stood there for 30 minutes, watching the grandmother buy the kid pizza, take her to the games, and not a single trace of the dedicated parents. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking. I opened Callum's text thread and sent a casual message. "Hey babe, what are you guys up to?" I stared at the screen. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. He was online, but no reply. Almost 15 minutes later, a text popped up. "Hey love, we're at the AMC theater watching that new Pixar movie Alara was dying to see. She's loving it, hasn't blinked once. Miss you. XOXO." I looked at my phone. Then I looked at Alara, who was 5 feet away from me violently mashing buttons on a Mario Kart arcade machine. Unless this kid had a secret twin or the ability to teleport, my fiancé was lying straight to my face. My intuition was screaming so loudly it was deafening. I needed to know exactly where he was and what he was doing, because he sure as hell wasn't at family therapy. I marched out of the mall, got into my car, and drove home. I cracked open my laptop and hunted down the grandmother's Facebook and Instagram. Her profile was public, typical boomer grandma who posts everything. The very first photo was a slap in the face. It was a picture of the grandma and Alara eating pretzels, posted an hour ago. Caption: Sunday fun day with my grandbaby. Grandma loves you to the moon. I scrolled down her feed. Last Sunday, a photo of Grandma and Alara at the zoo. 2 Sundays ago, Grandma and Alara baking cookies. Every single Sunday, for weeks, the kid was dumped at the grandmother's house. The math wasn't mathing. If Alara was with the grandma every Sunday, where was Callum? And where was Sloane? I needed to see Sloane's Instagram to be sure. Her profile was private, obviously, but never underestimate a betrayed woman with Wi-Fi. In 5 minutes, I whipped up a fake profile pretending to be a local Chicago boutique jewelry shop. I uploaded some aesthetic stock photos, followed a bunch of people to make it look legit, and sent Sloane a follow request. An hour later, she accepted. What I saw on her feed made the puzzle pieces snap together so violently it made me nauseous. There were no photos of Alara, no wholesome family pics. Her feed was a parade of pure lifestyle flexing. Photos of her holding glasses of expensive Cabernet at upscale steakhouses, plates of overpriced sushi, and oysters. She posted solo pictures with captions like, "Sunday vibes. Getting spoiled just how I like it." Or, "Second chances do exist." With ice-cold hands, I clicked through every photo until I found the smoking gun. In a picture posted 2 Sundays ago, at an absurdly expensive omakase sushi bar, Sloane was holding a cocktail, and right there, barely cropped out on the edge of the frame, was a man's arm, wearing a crisp polo shirt, holding a glass of bourbon, and gleaming on his wrist was that ridiculous, oversized silver watch. And then, the anvil of reality dropped on my head. Callum was using his daughter as a prop to get free Sundays to date Sloane. They were dumping Alara with the grandma and going on luxury dates as a happy couple. I slammed my laptop shut, panting. A flood of confusing questions hammered my brain. If he was back with his ex-wife, why didn't he just break up with me and move back in with her? Why stay with me? And worse, if his plan was to reconcile with her, why did he throw that massive tantrum and force me to decline my Seattle promotion? Why keep me anchored here? I didn't have the exact psychological answers for his sociopathy. I only knew one thing. He was playing me. Both him and that opportunistic parasite, Sloane. Callum thought he was a genius. He thought he could use me as his personal ATM and landlord, while lying to my face using his own child as a shield. He had no idea how dangerous it was to test the sanity of a corporate HR manager. If he wanted to play games, we were going to play in the big leagues. I was going to serve him a revenge so traumatizing he'd never use a child to cover a lie for the rest of his life. I took a deep breath, put my laptop away, and waited. Sunday night, around 10 p.m., the front door opened. Callum dragged his feet inside, letting out that classic fake sigh of exhaustion. "Wow, babe," he started, tossing his keys on the counter. The theater was packed. We actually ended up watching the movie twice because Alara refused to leave. She had a blast. But I am dead on my feet. I turned to him, plastering my absolute best, most cynical smile on my face. "Wow, twice? What stamina? What movie was it?" He froze in the middle of the living room. The amateur was so focused on the lie that he forgot to build an alibi. He blinked, scratched the back of his neck, and stammered. It was a princess one. You know how it is. An ice princess. Something like that. Kids' cartoons are all the same. I actually dozed off in the middle. But Alara loved it. An ice princess. Pathetic. Apparently the father of the year invented a time machine to watch Frozen in theaters. "Oh, that's so sweet, babe," I replied without blinking. "You really are an amazing dad. She must be so excited for that Hawaii trip, right?" He smiled, visibly relieved I'd changed the subject, and kicked off his shoes. "Oh, definitely. Alara can't wait to get on that plane. I'd do anything for her. I'm sure. Anything for Alara, I replied smoothly, and went to bed. Monday morning, I walked into my office building, took the elevator straight to the executive floor, and knocked on the VP's door. I walked in with my head held high and asked if the regional director position in Seattle was still on the table. He said yes, they hadn't finalized a candidate yet. Excellent, I said, shaking his hand. I accept. I had exactly 3 weeks to pack up my life for a cross-country move, and 2 weeks to execute a flawless plan to return Callum exactly where he belonged. The following week was the ultimate test of my patience. I had to swallow my disgust and act like everything was perfectly normal. Every time Callum came home, I smiled, kissed his lying face, ate dinner with him, and listened to him excitedly ramble about how much Alara was going to love the Hawaiian resort pools. My blood was practically acid, but I played the role of the supportive, understanding fiancé. I didn't say a word out of place. I let the genius believe he held all the cards. Until the night before his trip, when he managed to break his own record for audacity. I was in the living room folding his clothes so he could pack his suitcase. He sat next to me, rested his head on my shoulder, and sighed. Babe, this trip ended up being a little more expensive than I budgeted for. I paid for the flights and the resort on my debit card, and now my checking account is basically at zero. I stopped folding his t-shirt. Oh? I asked, suppressing a manic laugh. Yeah. Do you think you could let me borrow one of your high-limit travel credit cards? Just for emergencies. You know, what if Alara gets sick and needs a doctor? Or we need to buy medicine? Just so we aren't stranded if something happens. I swear it's strictly for emergencies, and I'll pay you back when the bill comes. The parasite wanted me, the woman he was cheating on, to finance his second honeymoon with his ex-wife, using a hypothetical sick child as leverage. I just smiled. The sweetest, most loving smile I could muster. Of course, my love. I couldn't bear the thought of Alara needing something and you not having funds. Here. Take this one. I handed him my premium travel card. The opportunist's eyes practically lit up. He gave me a passionate kiss, praising the heavens for having such an incredible partner. I grabbed a post-it note and jotted down the PIN for him, since it was required for large out-of-state transactions and cash advances. There was just one minor detail. I wrote down the wrong PIN. Sunday morning, the big day arrived. I kissed him goodbye, waved from the door, and locked it. His flight was out of O'Hare at 11 a.m. I waited. I washed my coffee mug, took a long, relaxing shower, and let the clock tick. By noon, the exact time they should have been somewhere over the Midwest airspace, I opened my phone and checked the grandma's Instagram. Boom. A brand new photo of Alara hugging her grandma at the front door. Caption: Grandma's little princess came to say goodbye to Mommy and Daddy. We're going to have a whole week of fun sleepovers while they enjoy Hawaii. Just as I suspected. The kid wasn't even going. The entire thing was a massive fraud so he could spend 7 days on a romantic getaway with his ex in Maui, funded by the rent money I'd let him save. I didn't shed a single tear. I tossed my phone on the couch, walked to my utility closet, and pulled out duct tape, cardboard boxes, and heavy-duty contractor trash bags. That very Sunday, I emptied his side of the closet. His suits, his fake watches, his shoes. I dumped everything into the garbage bags without folding a single item and shoved them into boxes in the corner of the living room. By Sunday night, my phone started buzzing on the coffee table. It was Callum calling. I didn't answer. He called again. Ignored. Then the barrage of texts started. Babe, please answer the phone. I tried to pay for our dinner at the resort restaurant and the card declined for an invalid PIN twice. If I enter it wrong again, the bank is going to lock the chip. I think you wrote down the wrong number. Harper, help! I'm so embarrassed right now. I read the message and burst out laughing in my living room, surrounded by moving boxes. I picked up the phone and typed back with absolute serenity. Dinner? Wait, babe. Didn't you say the card was exclusively for medical emergencies? I watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, and reappear. He must have been sweating bullets in front of the waiter. Harper, it is an emergency. We need to eat. Dinner is a basic human need. Just give me the PIN. I smirked at the screen. Wow, calm down. Try 8,541. I stared at the screen. A minute later, a voice memo popped up. He sounded like he was on the verge of tears. Harper, oh my God, it said invalid PIN again. The card is completely locked. What am I supposed to do? Oh shoot, babe. I think I accidentally gave you the PIN to my old debit card. Sorry. Are you kidding me? Harper, Venmo me $500 right now so I can pay this bill. I left him on read, put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and popped open a bottle of Pinot Noir to celebrate. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Before completely icing out the parasite, I logged into my fake jewelry account and checked Sloane's Instagram stories. The princess had posted a photo an hour ago of a massive, decadent lobster tail on a candlelit table. Caption: starting the vacation getting treated exactly how I deserve. I let out a cackle so loud it echoed through the empty condo. I really wanted to see how the successful executive was going to pay a $500 lobster bill with $0 in his checking account. I prayed the resort manager made them wash dishes until dawn. Monday morning, I woke up to a phone clogged with notifications. Father of the Year had spent the entire night whining. He sent essays calling me irresponsible, claiming he was forced to max out an emergency overdraft line of credit with insane interest rates just to pay for dinner, and that the whole thing was my fault. I smiled, deleted the messages without replying, and called a trusted locksmith. I had the locks on my condo changed. Then, I called my real estate broker and listed my fully furnished condo for rent. Finally, I opened Airbnb and booked a gorgeous studio in downtown Seattle for my first 30 days, while I hunted for a permanent place. As for my flight to Seattle, I specifically booked it for the following Sunday at 4 p.m. exactly 2 hours after Callum's return flight from Honolulu was scheduled to land at O'Hare. For the next few days, my phone was a war zone. Missed calls, voice memos begging for Zelle transfers, massive text walls saying I had ruined his trip by giving him the wrong PIN and that I was traumatizing Alara. I ignored every single one of them. The absolute silence of being left on read is the worst torture for a narcissist used to manipulating people through arguments. The highlight of my week was lying in bed at night, opening my fake account, and watching Sloane's Instagram stories devolve. Apparently, the romantic getaway turned into a survival show. Sloane's luxury flexing rapidly turned into a wall of passive-aggressive complaints. On Thursday, she posted a black screen with the text, "Counting down the minutes until I can go home. A man promises you the trip of a lifetime, but doesn't even have the credit limit to buy a cocktail at the pool. Number? Embarrassing." On Friday, she posted a photo of Callum's back as he walked down a sun-scorched Hawaiian highway, having to walk 2 miles in the blazing heat because he can't afford a $15 Uber. Humiliating. On Saturday night, it was a picture of a sad, soggy fish taco on a paper plate. Tonight's gala dinner. This is what you get for trusting a broke man. And on Sunday morning, the grand finale. A picture of their battered suitcases in the resort lobby. Finally going home. Worst trip of my entire life. Callum must have been living in hell, trapped on an island with Sloane complaining 24/7. Karma was served piping hot. That same morning, I hired a moving van and shipped all of Callum's boxes straight to Sloane's apartment complex. After all, if he wanted to play house with his ex, he might as well move in permanently. After the movers left, I cleaned my condo, grabbed my stylish luggage, handed my keys over to the broker, and called an Uber to O'Hare. I arrived looking elegant, smelling great, and feeling victorious. I bought an iced latte and a croissant, sat directly in front of the arrivals board, and waited. Which brings us back to the scene at the beginning. When I saw the Honolulu flight had landed, I walked right up to the arrivals gate. And there they came. The two broke, miserable lovebirds, burnt to a crisp from walking miles on the asphalt. Callum was dragging his bag, looking like he deeply regretted spending thousands of borrowed dollars on a disastrous trip, and Sloane looked ready to push him into oncoming traffic. I stepped right into their path. Callum's eyes bugged out. Sloane physically recoiled. And before he could stutter a single excuse for their funereal vibe, I smiled and loudly asked, "Hey, how was the family trip? Where's Alara? Did you guys forget your daughter in Hawaii?" I said it loud enough for the people around us to turn and look. Callum went so pale, his sunburn temporarily disappeared. He dropped his suitcase handle, swallowed hard, looked around frantically, and blurted out the first idiotic lie his brain could manifest. "Harper, what are you doing here? Babe, wait, let me explain." Alara had a massive panic attack on the day of the flight. She was terrified of the plane, so Sloane's mom had to take her back home. We only went to Maui so we wouldn't lose the money we spent on the non-refundable tickets. He stepped closer. And then you disappeared. You gave me the wrong PIN. You left me humiliated. I just stared at him. The sheer audacity of this man belonged in a medical journal. He cheats on me, uses the money he saved by leeching off me to take his ex on a tropical vacation, and still has the nerve to gaslight me over a bank PIN. Oh, really? I laughed, not dropping my smile. You guys took the bullet and went to Hawaii just so you wouldn't waste the tickets? What a sacrifice. That's so weird, Callum, because I was looking at Grandma's Facebook page, and I saw a post saying Alara came to drop you off so you could enjoy a parent's getaway. She was happily eating a pretzel on Sunday while you two were boarding a flight to the Pacific to fake some family therapy. Sloane shot me a death glare. Who the hell do you think you are stalking my mother's Facebook? She snarled, dropping any pretense of innocence. I was the idiot fiancé who believed Callum was a devoted father doing everything for his kid. But apparently, I was wrong, I replied smoothly. By the way, Sloane, I absolutely loved your Instagram stories complaining about the trip. I hope you aren't too mad that I accidentally gave Callum the wrong PIN for my credit card. Sloane's face turned purple with rage. She pointed a manicured finger an inch from my nose. You did that on purpose. You ruined our vacation because you're a jealous, miserable snake. This is exactly why Callum realized he'd rather be with me than a cold, corporate bitch like you. Oh, Sloane, I am so glad you brought up you two being together. I clapped my hands in mock excitement. I actually did you guys a massive favor. I packed up all of Callum's cheap suits and fake watches and had a moving company drop them off at your apartment this morning. Now you guys can resume your perfect happy family under one roof. You're welcome. They both froze. Callum's eyes practically popped out of his skull. What? You sent my stuff to Sloane's? What about our condo? He yelled, panicking. Sloane looked even more horrified. Her smug expression melted into pure terror. Are you insane? She shrieked at me, waving her arms. Callum cannot live at my place. I live in a tiny one-bedroom. I don't want him there. Aw, that's a shame. But it's too late now. His stuff is in your lobby, I shrugged. See, I accepted that regional director job in Seattle. I already handed my keys to the broker to rent out the condo. I'm officially moving to Washington State. My flight leaves in 2 hours. You guys can figure out your housing situation. Best of luck. Callum was physically shaking. He took a step toward me and grabbed my arm, his eyes welling up with tears. Harper, please, I am begging you. Forgive me. He started pleading in the middle of O'Hare, throwing the last shreds of his dignity into the garbage. I'll go to Seattle with you. I'll drop everything here. Sloane was a mistake. A momentary lapse. She seduced me when she saw I had extra cash because of you. She doesn't care about me. She just wants my money. She's a gold-digging parasite. Sloane heard that, and her jaw dropped so far it practically hit the terminal floor. I ripped my arm out of his grip with absolute disgust. Oh, Callum, stop it. I know you can't be far away from Alara. She has anxiety, remember? Your place is here with her, I mocked, using his exact manipulative words against him. He dropped to his knees right there on the airport tile, grabbing the hem of my blazer. Alara will understand. Harper! She can spend the summers with us in Seattle. That was the exact moment Sloane lost whatever remaining sanity she possessed. Listening to this man who just ruined her dream vacation, begging on his knees to get back with the woman who orchestrated it all, was too much. She yanked her luggage handle, looked down at Callum on the floor, and dropped a nuclear bomb that echoed through the entire baggage claim. You know what, Callum? She screamed, her voice cracking hysterically. You can go to hell or you can go to Seattle with this bitch. Go. Leave. Go pretend to be a dad somewhere else, especially since Alara isn't even your real daughter. The airport went dead silent. A terrifying, cinematic silence. Callum stopped crying instantly. He stayed on his knees, staring up at her, paralyzed. What did you just say? He whispered. You heard me, she snarled, violently adjusting her purse on her shoulder. Alara is Declan's daughter. Remember Declan? The guy from my old clinic you used to be so jealous of? Yeah, you were right. We had an affair. But Declan transferred out of state before I found out I was pregnant. You were just such a pathetic, hopelessly in love loser that you signed the birth certificate and married me without ever putting two and two together. You've always been a broke deadbeat, but you were the only idiot willing to house me. Callum looked like he had taken a shotgun blast to the chest. He tried to stand up, but his legs gave out. I just stood there, gripping the handle of my rolling suitcase, feeling like I had been teleported into an episode of Jerry Springer. The script was so chaotic that I couldn't have written it better if I tried. Callum, still on the floor, finally snapped. He started screaming, abandoning any concept of public decency. You lying, scamming whore! You played me for 7 years? You ruined my life, he bellowed, the veins in his neck bulging. Sloane, who had already thrown the grenade and figured there was nothing left to lose, lunged right back at him. I ruined your life? You ruined mine! You're a total failure. A broke mooch, she screamed, swinging her heavy designer knockoff purse right into his face. You begged me to take you back. You promised me a luxury vacation. You promised me a VIP experience, and you made me spend the worst week of my life eating cheap tacos and walking on the highway. If I could go back in time, I never would have lied about being pregnant. I deeply regret spending 4 years married to a loser who needs women to pay his rent. And the brawl didn't stop there. Sloane was so unhinged that she knelt down, violently unzipped Callum's suitcase right there in the terminal, grabbed his dirty Hawaiian shirts, his swim trunks, and his shoes, and started hurling them directly at his head. Take your trash. Take your garbage and go live on the street, you pathetic cuck. People were completely stopped in their tracks. Half the terminal had their phones out, recording the entire thing. The fight escalated so aggressively, with Sloane trying to kick him in the shins and him trying to wrestle her purse away, that TSA and airport police came sprinting from down the hall, shouting into their radios. I looked at the pathetic scene, a couple literally destroying each other in the middle of Terminal 3, competing to see who was the bigger parasitic loser. I didn't need to be there anymore. My part in this play was over. I adjusted my sunglasses, gripped my chic luggage, and slipped away unnoticed. I breezed through the TSA pre-check line while the two of them were still screaming, physically separated by 3 officers in high-vis vests. I went straight to the airline's VIP lounge, grabbed a complimentary glass of champagne, sank into a plush leather armchair, and watched the planes take off while waiting for my flight to Seattle. I sat there laughing to myself, marveling at how a simple broken engagement had escalated into the most spectacular dumpster fire I had ever witnessed. But you know what? It was the absolute best closure I could have ever asked for. It's been 6 months since that airport brawl. I moved to Seattle, and I am loving every single second of it. The rainy, cool weather is amazing. My wine fridge is fully stocked in my gorgeous new high-rise apartment with views of the Puget Sound. My career as regional director has skyrocketed. My salary doubled. And best of all, I have my peace back. But of course the world is incredibly small and corporate gossip always finds its way around. Recently, I was catching up with a mutual friend who works at Callum's firm in Chicago, and I got the final update on their little soap opera. After the chaotic airport arrest, Callum, operating on pure wounded ego, demanded a court-ordered paternity test. He wanted to legally sever ties, drop the child support, and walk away with some shred of vindication. But guess the results of the DNA test? It came back positive. Callum is Alara's biological father. The incredible poetic irony of it all is that Sloane actually genuinely believed the kid belonged to her affair partner. She did cheat on Callum with her coworker Declan while they were dating, and she only screamed that confession at the airport because she was 100% convinced Callum was raising another man's child. In the end, Sloane exposed her own infidelity and destroyed her reputation for absolutely nothing. She torched her life in the middle of O'Hare Airport for free. Because the video of the fight went insanely viral around their social circles, she is now globally branded as a lying, cheating gold digger. Since Callum is legally and biologically the father, the judge ordered him to continue paying standard child support, which is good, because at least the little girl isn't financially punished for her parents' absolute insanity. He still gets his weekend custody. The only difference is that Father of the Year no longer dumps his kid at Grandma's house to go on dates with his ex-wife, mostly because they can't be in the same room for 10 seconds without police involvement. Sloane got exactly what she deserved, too. Callum stopped paying a single cent outside of the court-mandated support. No more secret rent payments. No more paying for her lifestyle. And since Sloane couldn't afford a Chicago apartment on a receptionist salary, well, poor thing, right? I guess I really should have fast-tracked her resume. According to the grandma's Facebook, Sloane and Alara had to move back into her mother's suburban basement. But the absolute best part of the gossip is that karma missed absolutely no one. Remember the bystanders recording the airport fight? Well, the video made its rounds on TikTok and Facebook. And guess whose feed the viral video eventually landed on? Declan's wife. Yep. The guy Sloane cheated with was married. His wife found out about the affair entirely because of Sloane's hysterical confessions screaming Declan's name in the middle of the terminal. She filed for divorce, took half of everything, and Declan's life was blown to pieces. So, with one unhinged temper tantrum, Sloane managed to destroy her own life, Callum's life, and her former lover's life in one clean sweep. And me? Well, I am living my absolute best era. I accepted that I genuinely have a broken radar for men, so I decided to retire it permanently. I stopped looking for the one and decided to focus entirely on myself. Today, my only commitments are to my career and my peace of mind. I'm taking care of my health, traveling, drinking excellent wine, and becoming the best version of myself. The only male allowed in my life right now is Gatsby. He's the black cat I adopted from a Seattle shelter. And unlike my ex, he actually appreciates the person who puts food in his bowl. If you made it this far, write Gatsby in the comments. I always read them, and I love knowing who the real ones are that stick around until the very end of the story. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening and for always supporting the channel. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to leave a like. It sounds silly, but your likes really help the algorithm push these stories to more people. Sending a huge hug to all of you. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next story.